So I saved Shades of Blue to work on today. I haven't touched this one since Monday's floss tube update. I was working on my Plum Street Sampler Yuletide design the beginning part of this week, and I thought that I would save this one to work on for when I recorded this video, and then this is going to stay on my frame for the entire weekend, and it's going to be the only thing that I work on stitching other than my Ginger Gerald Smalls windmill, which I plan on finishing up the stitching on that this weekend as well. So just a little bit of information at the beginning, in case you're interested. This is Northern Expressions Needlework, Shades of Blue. I am stitching this on a 40 count white linen, and I am using the called for Dinky Dyes silks. So in case you're interested in this pattern, I'll just tell you the names of the silks. The darkest blue is Midnight. The medium is called Dreamtime. And then the lightest one is called Sapphire. So those are the three there. Midnight, Dreamtime, and Sapphire. And so those are the three shades. This is 1 thread over 2 on 40 count linen. Now, before I get to stitching today, I had a really great comment last week, and I'm afraid I can't remember your name. I hope you're watching again today so that I can thank you for leaving this particular comment. You know, when you've been doing something for so long and you're explaining it to beginners, you sometimes forget that they don't see things the same way that you do. And her comment was, you know, if you're going to be explaining 1 over 1 or 2 over 2, you should be doing it on a fabric where you can actually see what you're doing. And she's right. Amtrak is, the fabric is so small, and the camera angle was probably a little too far away for you to properly see that. So what I'm going to do today is I have a piece of paper and a marker, and I thought I would just do a quick little demo of what I'm talking about. So if you're brand new, you can actually see, you can visualize what we're talking about. So if you've been afraid to try linen versus Aida, then maybe this might give you the confidence to give it a try. And you know what? Stitch on what you love. If you love Aida, don't feel like you have to try linen if you don't want to. Aida is awesome. And, you know, we all have our preferences. Okay, so the way we see linen is, the way that I see linen is I look for the holes. So when we stitch on Aida, we have our 4 holes, right, in the fabric, and we make the X like that. Now that's how I make my X. My bottom leg is always right to left and then left to right. And that's an important thing to know when you're stitching. You want that top leg of your stitch to always be going the same way. So if I did my first stitch from here to here and then here to here, I would bring my needle up over here so that my next leg was underneath the same way, and then I would come up here and cross it down here so that the top leg of my stitch is going the same way. So when we stitch on Aida, it's very easy to see those 4 holes, okay? Now the difference between Aida and linen is that we have a few more holes to deal with. So when you see a square on linen, you're actually going to be seeing 9 holes. So it'll look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is going to be either 1 over 2 or 2 over 2. So just like this, I'm going to start in the top right corner, and I'm going to come down to the left, and I'm going to skip over that hole in the middle, and then I'm going to come up in this hole here, and I'm going to stitch down to that hole there. So these 3 holes that are in the middle, you're going to skip. Now the reason why the number 2 comes into play is that because that's where the thread is of the fabric, right? So if you're using 1 strand of floss on your needle, like I am, so I'm using 1 strand of floss versus 2 strands of floss threaded in my needle, that's where the first number comes from, the 1 or the 2. And then the over 2 stands for the 2 threads that you're going over that's in the fabric. So 1 thread, 2 threads. So I'm going over 2 threads. And then I'm coming up under 2 threads, and I'm going over 2 threads. So that's where you're going to always be seeing, and maybe you haven't understood 1 over 2 or 2 over 2. Now, if you hear of someone who is stitching 1 over 1 on linen, that's what this looks like. So let's draw our 9 holes again. And we'll label this 1 over 1. That's where you're going to start much smaller. You're going to start here, or wherever it is that you start your bottom leg. Lots of people start it differently. I like to start it here, down there. Come up here and go down here. Then I'm going to come up over here, go down, up here, and over 1. So you can see 1 over 1 is twice as small as if I were doing 2 over 2 or 1 over 2. I hope that made sense. I hope that helped somebody. And maybe you'll be confident that trying linen maybe won't be as difficult as you thought it was. It's all how you see it. And I like how someone described seeing it as 9 holes instead of thinking 2 over 2. They saw 9 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the box was made out of those 9 holes. Anyway, there you go. Tip of the day. Hopefully that helped somebody. Okay, so back to business here. This is jiggling the camera there. Okay, so we are working with, what am I working with? This is the medium blue that I'm working with. So this is Dreamtime. And I thought that I would, wait a second. Let me get my pattern. Obviously not ready to go here. I think I'm mistaken with what where I was thinking I was. So rustle, rustle, rustle. Get this paper. This is a humongous pattern. 12, 13 pages? It's 13 pages, this pattern. They are not fooling around. And of course, I can't find the page I need. Okay, I'm going to stop the video here for a minute because I just don't have the right page in front of me. I'll be right back. Okay, ready to go. So I'm actually starting well over in the right. I thought I was going to be doing the fill-in here, but my needle was already loaded with the medium blue color, and these diamonds are, of course, the dark blue color. So since I had my needle ready to go, we'll just find a spot where it's appropriate and go for it. So the position of my camera, I have it on the other side today. So I'm going to try and stitch two-handed, but it's a little bit awkward today. Maybe if I just move that over a little bit. It's quite a bit of shadow today. It's a gray day outside today. We had a very sunny morning, and then the cloud cover came over, and there is 40% chance of rain. This is not right. I started over too far. All right, let's rip that out. See, that's the downside to not having stitching on the opposite side yet. I miscalculated where my center was. Try this again. Try not to get my hair in the camera again today like I did last week when I was threading my needle and putting my thread in. Okay, so one stitch over to where I was. That's better. Here we go. This linen is just lovely to work on. It's just fine, not overly slubby, which I don't tend to mind when you get the thick and thin fibers in your fabric. I find that gives linen its charm. But the holes are particularly easy to see, which for myopic eyes from a distance is a good thing. Normally when I'm stitching this on my own without chatting to you, I put it on a pillow on my lap and I take my glasses off and I bring it right up to my nose, and then it's really easy to see. And I can stitch away for hours. Oh, we have friends here at the moment visiting. They are from Hong Kong. They are expats living in Hong Kong, and they've come with their 3 children who are lovely, and they just love being here so much that it's always a lot of fun. They were thrilled to see me again. We haven't seen them in 2 years. So as soon as they got off the boat, there were big hugs, and it's nice to have them back. If you've been hanging out with me for a while now, you may remember a blanket that I knit last year. I'm not sure I shared it on my floss tube update, but I certainly shared it on Instagram. And it was a child sort of lovey sized blanket, and it just looked like a candy corn design. The brightest, most vivid orange and yellow that you've ever seen, mixed in with a cream that I had put in to tone it down a little bit. And it was a ripple, not a ripple, like a chevron knit pattern. And actually, if you're looking for an easy knit chevron style, it was a free pattern from L'Espace Tricot, which is a knit shop in Quebec, and it's right on their website, and I think it's called Baby Blanket Chevron or something like that. What I'll do is I'll put a link to that pattern. If I remember, I will put a link to that pattern in the drop down box below. And if I forget and you're looking for it and it's not there, leave me a comment and that will jog my memory to put it in. Anyways, this candy corn blanket turned out so sweetly, and there was a really funny story behind why I was making this blanket for this particular little boy who had seen my son's lovey blanket, which he still sleeps with every night. He's 10, and my sister-in-law Kathy had made it for my son, and Dash, his name is Dashiel, and Dash had seen Nicholas's blanket and came in to me and asked me if I would knit him a blanket. And I said, well, okay, how big do you want it? And he threw his arms out to the side and he said, I want it this wide. And then he peeked his eyes over top of his body and he said, and I want it this long. And then he looked down to the floor. So I knew approximately. He fortunately was a small boy. he wasn't a big lad. So I thought, okay, well, I can make a blanket that size. So it's basically just a slightly larger than a crib size blanket. So I finished that last year, and of course they were long gone. They weren't in Canada anymore at that point. So I mailed it to Hong Kong, and he finally received it, and they sent me a sweet video of him opening it and being obviously very pleased with it. And then I didn't really think much more of it until they showed up yesterday, and Dash was waving at me from the boat as they pulled into the dock, and he was waving his blankie. He was waving his candy corn blanket. And his mom told me that he absolutely loves it. He still sleeps with it. He sleeps with it every night, just like Nicholas does with his. And, I know that there are lots of times where we as crafters make gifts and give them to people who maybe don't appreciate their worth. But this was one of those moments where it just made this particular crafter's heart very, very happy. And, I was just so pleased that I'd gone to the effort for him, because he loves it. He takes it everywhere with him. So it's traveled from Canada to Hong Kong, back to Canada, and will be making its way back to Hong Kong shortly. So John has taken our guests out for a boat ride. And he always does this for me. My husband is very thoughtful. He knows that I'm not a big fan of boat rides. So he never makes me feel like I have to go on the trip. So even though he's entertaining our friends, he's happy to do it on his own. So everybody's out on the boat right now. And don't worry, we had the motor fixed. So we had a new, something. It didn't end up being the fuel pump after all. It was some other, I don't know. Did you ever see that Simpsons episode where George Costanza takes his car in and they're talking about what needs to be repaired? And he says, what do I know? They could tell me I need a new Johnson rod. And what difference would it make? I wouldn't know the difference anyways. It's kind of like that. I think they told us we needed a new Johnson rod on our motor. So it is fixed. It is repaired, fortunately. So they are out enjoying a boat ride, and I'm pretty sure they're going to stop for ice cream at the marina on their way back. Now I'm carrying my thread a little bit further than I normally would. That's not right. What is that? 2, 3. What am I doing? Oops. I'm up in the wrong spot. There we go. That's better. I think I missed a... Did I? No, I'm good. So far, so good. Yep. So it is Thursday here today. I'm recording on Thursday because tomorrow I am unexpectedly heading into town. My father-in-law has some tickets to the Festival of the Sound here in Parry Sound, and that is a music festival that happens every year here in Parry Sound, and it's a wonderful music festival. Classical musicians from classical and jazz musicians from all over the world travel here. This festival is becoming renowned. We have a new-ish concert hall that was built in Parry Sound called the Stuckey Center, and the acoustics are quite good. So I am going to a concert tomorrow with my father-in-law. He is taking me out, which is kind of nice because I know he and my mother-in-law used to attend the festival every year. They would buy passes to the festival. It's 2 weeks long, and they would go to as many concerts as they could possibly fit into their schedule. But since she passed away, he hasn't really gone nearly as much as he used to. He's tried a few times to go by himself, and I've gone with him a couple times as well. But I think it's a bit bittersweet for him when he goes, even though he still loves it. It reminds him that he's missing my mother-in-law. So, but that's what we're headed to do tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to try and get a few bags out from Evertote. I've got a few orders to get in the mail. I'm hoping, but I'm not actually sure that we will have time to go to the post office because we are on a very strict timeline. When you have to arrange boat and car and be at a specific place at a specific time, one does what one is told. So I'm not sure that we're going to have enough time to go to the post office, but I'm going to try. The weather's looking cooler over the next few days, which is nice. We had another real heat wave here the last few days. Very, very humid and warm temperatures. The dog was quite hot. But things are cooling down, so we're a bit happier now. Haven't seen the bear or signs of the bear in the last week. So we're hoping that he's moved on to another island. There's not much for him to eat at the moment since all of our blueberries died. And everything is so dry. Not sure what he's been able to find under rocks and things like that. So, but they're probably fairly resourceful creatures, so. The loon was singing last night. I did take a little bit of video, but the video itself is of course pitch black because I aimed the camera out the window. And what am I doing here? I meant to go over one more square, so we'll backtrack a little bit. I will try to get a slightly better recording of the loon. See, the thing is, when they make their call, they don't do it for very long. So if you're not quick with the recording device, you miss it, or you catch part of it. What good is that? Whippoorwill's been back a number of times. Which is always nice to hear. Blue is one of my favorite colors. It really is. Anything blue, I'm a fan. I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm working on something for Evertote that's coming out in August that involves blue. And that's all I'm going to say about it for now. But maybe I'll make Friday the day where I give out a few more hints about what's coming. It's not ready to go yet, so I'm not ready to fill in all the details yet, but I'm kind of excited. Oh, I love this fabric, and I just, when I start working on this piece, I think, why did you put it away for so long? Tiny little stitches that are perfect. Go. So at the beginning of this season, we switched out our refrigerator. I know this seems like a funny topic to talk about, but it's on my mind at the moment. Most of our appliances run off propane, natural gas, propane. So we had a propane fridge, and we decided that we would try a couple of these. They're like oversized bar fridges. Okay, so think about a small bar fridge that you would have in a dormitory, and slightly bigger than a small size. So they're not tiny, but they don't have any freezers in them, you see, and it's the freezer part of the fridge that uses all the power. So because lugging propane tanks up to where they need to be installed when they're empty, it's a big job. And our fridge was the largest user of propane. So by replacing our propane fridge with two smaller electric fridges with no freezer, we are actually now running them off our solar system. And when we only have just the four of us here, one of those fridges is sufficient space for our use. And then when we have guests, we turn the second one on. When we turn the second one on, we really notice that our power, we go through the power quite a bit more quickly than with just the one. But it's an experiment this summer to see how things go, and if it's too much of a drain on the batteries and we're just having to run the generator more frequently to compensate, which it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Do you keep refilling the propane tanks, or do you keep refilling the gasoline generator? Pick your poison. So this year was kind of a test, and I think that we may run another gas line to hook up the propane fridge anyways and have it as a backup. So maybe we'll use the propane fridge when we have guests and just the solar electric fridge. I misspeak. It is not a solar electric fridge. It's an electric fridge that we run off our solar panels. So I hope that makes sense. Anyways, we have to really plan. We also have to plan water usage. We now we fill our water pump with the generator. We used to fill it with our solar panels, but it is really just too much of a draw on the batteries. It's a little bit too hard on the batteries, and we need them to last longer than just a couple of years because they're very expensive. So we now use the generator to fill up the water tank, which is, fine when you have lots of when you don't have lots of guests. When it's just either Nicholas and I or just 3 or 4 of us, we can, if you're frugal with your water, you don't have to fill it up very often. But when we have guests and everybody's using the washroom and there's massive amounts of dishes and all of that stuff, we are using our generator quite heavily. So I'm fortunate. We've been very fortunate with our generator that it's a reliable piece of equipment. But it is a different way to live. This is not everybody's cup of tea. It was funny. I was chatting with Ginger Gerald, and we were texting each other, and I said, okay, I have to go now. I have to go and turn the generator on so that I can do some ironing. And it was 11 o'clock at night, and because I have to, when I make bags for Evertote, I have to use the iron, at several different stages of the process. And I had bags that needed to go out the next day because my father-in-law was going to town unexpectedly. And so I had to go and turn the generator on at 11 p.m. in order to use my iron. And Gerald said, I don't know how you, I don't know how you live like that. And I just think, well, different things make different people happy. And having to turn the generator on to run the iron is really not a big deal. And all of the good things that I have up here, I think, more than make up for it. Okay. I am finished my thread, so I think I'm going to leave it at that today. And I'm going to say goodbye. I hope that you have something fun to stitch this weekend. I hope you get to spend some time with family and friends, or all by yourself if that's your desire as well. Because frankly, sometimes a weekend by yourself is kind of special too. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and get lots of stitching done. And hopefully you'll join us on the Facebook group, Friday Off the Grid. We're a chatty bunch, and there's just so much inspiration there. So many wonderful projects being stitched and accomplished, and, finishes that are just so talented. Just so much talent and ideas are given and received, and it's a pretty fun place to be. So that's the Friday Off the Grid Facebook group. And just a reminder that I will not be filming a Monday update video, but the next time I see you will be on Sunday. So in just a couple of days, because it is the last Sunday of the month, which means that it's time for Sunday high tea. And what that is at the end of the month, the last Sunday of each month, I celebrate starting something new, usually from my stash, and I turn it into something that's a bit special so that, I can enjoy. And instead of just starting something willy-nilly all the time, which is generally what I used to do, and I have nothing against doing that, but it's gotten me into a bit of a pickle in that I have, 100 projects that are underway and nothing's getting done. So instead, this way, there's a limit, and it's 12 new starts this year instead of 50. And anyways, Sunday is time for high tea. So maybe you'll join me. And there's always a giveaway as well. So I'll see you on Sunday for high tea. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Happy stitching.